Section C. Brackets.
Brackets look kind of like parentheses but lack the smooth contour. The main purpose of brackets, which look like this, is to insert editorial comments in a quoted passage. They're kind of like specialized parentheses, so everything that we said about parentheses we can apply to brackets, just as long as what we're putting inside them is an editorial comment. But what's an editorial comment, you ask?
The manager of the Burger Palace said, "The recipe for our secret sauce is a well-kept secret we've protected for decades." The second part of the sentence, "The recipe for our secret sauce is a well-kept secret we've protected for decades," is a direct quotation. So we know this must be word for word what the manager said.
But what if we wanted to insert a piece of information into the quote, like the fact that the special sauce is really just mayonnaise that's been left out in the sun? We need to show that it's we, the writers, who are saying it, not the manager. That makes it an editorial comment, so all we have to do is pull out a couple handy-dandy brackets, surround our insert, and stick them right on in.
Now we have the recipe for our secret sauce, really just mayonnaise that's been left in the sun, is a well-kept secret we've protected for decades. The brackets tell us what was part of the original quote and what we, the writer, have added as an editorial comment.
So the only time you'd use one of these brackets is to surround a piece of your own information you want to put inside a direct quotation.
That's right, Susie. And the best part is that you can take all those rules you learned about parentheses and apply them to brackets. Brackets are a real lifesaver, Susie.
And you can even use them to make yourself a couple inches taller.
How true!
That's enough, Susie. You're making yourself look like a complete...
Parentheses are used to insert a piece of information in a sentence that isn't directly connected to the sentence's main point. The material inside parentheses is called a parenthetical expression, which can be in whatever grammatical form you use. Parentheses can interact with other forms of punctuation. First, the parenthetical expression can have its own punctuation independent from the rest of the sentence. Also, a comma can never come immediately before the first parenthesis. And finally, periods, question marks, and exclamation points sometimes come before the second parenthesis and sometimes come after it, depending on how they're being used.
Quotation marks have four main uses. They surround direct quotations, titles of songs, poems, magazine articles, and short stories, defined words or words that are referred to as words, and words or phrases that are meant to be sarcastic. Normally, double quotation marks are used, but if you need to quote material inside other quoted material, the inside quotation uses single quotation marks.
No other form of punctuation ever comes immediately after an opening quotation mark. When you look at the closing quotation mark and other forms of punctuation, they can be classified three ways. First, periods and commas always come before the closing quotation mark. Second, semicolons, colons, and dashes always come after the closing quotation mark. And third, question marks and exclamation points sometimes come before the closing quotation mark and sometimes come after it, depending on the situation.
Brackets are used to insert an editorial comment into a direct quotation. An editorial comment is a piece of information the writer wants to include in a direct quotation that isn't really a part of the original quotation, like commentary or an explanation. Like parentheses, you can use any grammatical form inside brackets.
4. And the rest.
There are only two more marks left to go, the slash and the ellipses. They're easy to use and don't have a bunch of pitfalls like the comma or that pesky apostrophe. So sit back, relax, and learn about the slash and ellipses. You're almost home. First, we're going to talk about the slash.
Section A, the slash.
Here's the slash. The slash has three main purposes: to separate lines of poetry, to show a choice between two or more choices, and to write fractions. First, we'll look at slashes and poetry.
Cheese Louise by Mercy Vince Lenny. The leafy trees are leafy, leafy. The beefy cows are beefy, beefy. But beefy cows and leafy trees are ne'er so sweet as my Louise.
Suppose we want to reference this poem in a paper. By placing slashes in between the lines of poetry, we can write it this way. The opening 2 lines of the poem Cheese Louise go like this. The leafy trees are leafy, leafy. The beefy cows are beefy, beefy. Notice that we left a space before and after the slash.
Be sure to select a tasty condiment for your hot dog. Ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise. Notice that when we use a slash between choices, we don't leave a space.
The last way to use a slash is the easiest, and that's to write a fraction. If you're typing and you want to type 3/4, you can write it 3/4. Or for 7 1/16, you could write 7 space 1/16. Let's see, poetry, choices, fractions. Yep, that pretty much wraps up the uses of the slash. Now let's move on to ellipses.